Hey Kevin here, Mr. DIY Dork from DIYDork.com. Today I want to give you an update on our metal siding installation, and I want to show you kind of how we're putting it up. We've actually started doing it before I did some video here because we wanted to get a good feel for it, and I think I understand it well enough that I can kind of show you how we're doing it. So anyway, check this out. All right, so for the third piece that we have mounted here on the right side of the window, to figure that out, we did just like I showed you with the lines and figuring out the height and all that. We also did the same thing with the window. Now, because we went kind of untraditional and did not use J-channel on top of the window, we had to measure to the exact top of that drip cap piece up there. We measured down to the bottom trim, and then that would be the exact height that piece would be cut. We also, if you notice, I floated the drip cap over the J-channel a little bit, so we actually had to end up cutting a little seam into each side. You can see how it overlaps the J-channel by maybe 1/4 inch, and that was a little bit difficult, but that way it'll help keep water out. I'll show you all that in a minute. But then when we would go around the J-channel, we did the same thing as the top and the bottom. We would leave about a 1/4 inch clearance. You can kind of see in there's about a 1/4 inch gap, just so we had a little movement, a little room to move around if we needed to. And then we took all of our measurements and we drew them down. Okay, so that's what this is right here. And we wrote all the measurements we possibly would need. And then what we would do is lay the panels over here on the ground. Now we have some 2x4s right here up off the ground. What we do is we lay some old t-shirts or towels up there to keep the piece from getting scratched. And then we would lay it upside down. So you can see the front side that shows is gray, the back side is white. So we'd, flip-flop it over so that the white was showing. And then we do all our measurements. And I'd have to draw everything backwards, and you just, had to be super careful about that. Make sure that you were going from the correct edge, because one side has a flap and one doesn't. So you just have to keep all that in line. But we did that. We cut it down, and it would fit really well. And, if you do it right, the piece will fit really nice. And then like that little gap we had to cut up there, very tricky. I don't really know anyone else that has done anything like that, but that's what we did. A little untraditional, but I think it'll help keep water out, and I think it worked pretty well. Now, to actually cut the pieces down, I'll show you a couple of things that we're using. This is also where it gets a little, maybe don't do as we did, or do as I say, but I'll show you what we did anyway. Okay, now obviously you got your metal tin snips here. These work really well on flat pieces, but once you start trying to cut over these ribs, what happens is, see how that's starting to flatten out? You get really screwed up edges like that. Now we also bought a set of power shears, which basically work exactly the same way, but it's, powered is basically a drill with a shear on the end. And these things are okay. They work really great for cutting pieces like this. Excuse me. It works really great for cutting really straight pieces like that, but when you're going over the ridge, it does the same thing. It wants to squash it down flat. And we actually installed this side and the other side opposite of it using just those two tools, and it took forever. And we were trying to figure out a little bit faster way because we were in such a time crunch. So that's when we got out the skill saw. Now, most metal manufacturers are not going to warrant your metal, or not going to keep your warranty up if you use something like this. But I did a little research and I found a really cool saw blade that is actually designed to cut metal, and has really fine teeth, and you probably can't see it, but it even has kind of like a file built into the edge here, and it gives you pretty clean cuts. It doesn't really burn the metal. Sometimes you do research, you'll see people say you just take a regular blade and turn it around backwards. Retried that, and it just really chewed everything up. But this blade here actually cuts pretty nice. And let's see, actually, I'll tell you what, this little sample piece I've shown you was cut with that, and you can see how clean cut that is. I mean, there is no shreds or chewed up looking at all, and that was cut with that blade. But like I said, we are in a time crunch, and pretty much any manufacturer is not going to warranty anything cut with a skill saw, but it works awesome and very fast. It works perfect when you're going across all the ribs. So that's what we would do when we'd cut, the tops of the angles here. We'd use the skill saw. When we'd cut the piece like right here, across the ribs underneath the window, we use a skill saw. When we cut the straight, flat part on the sides of the window, we would use the power shears because they were a little faster, and it worked out pretty nice. I had to do a little digging around, but I found a piece that we actually screwed up, but I'll show you the little snip we did for the corner. And it's not the prettiest looking thing, but once the drip cap is in there, it looks fine. And we did those cuts with the tin snips, you know, the handheld tin snips, and it worked out okay. I think we've been going well. Like right here, we have the back installed, and it looks really nice. There's a few issues up close, but it's not too bad at all. All right, and then one last trick is after the piece was cut to size, we only basically hung it up with the minimal amount of screws that we needed. So what you do is when the piece overlaps, like you can see right here, there's an overlap. So what you do is on just this, you know, it's not the actual overlap side, it's the opposite side. We put a screw in. So we did that, and then we put one right above the drip cap and then one up top. And what I did to make sure they were all level, because I figured out on the first side we did how to do it like a hack, was just to guesstimate everything. Then once we got done, I realized that everything was kind of waving. So what I did is I made this little template here, and you can kind of see, let's see if I can clear it up a little bit here. What I did is I wrote bottom, I measured up about 3 inches. I also have a side for the top that's about 3.5 inches. And I also have a line right there that's 24 inches from the very bottom of this piece. So what we do is we'd hold the piece up, and then I'd draw a line at that 3 inch, and I do the same thing at the top, and we put a screw in there. And we'd also do a line every 24 inches, and then that's where we'd eventually put screws later. But just to get everything up, all you gotta have is a screw up top and a screw down the bottom to hold it. Then when you're all done, you can go through and measure every 24 inches, like you can see here, and put screws in there, hold everything nice and tight, and it'll be totally finished. Of course, that little template I made works great if it's just one person working. If you have 2 people, you can be a little quicker. You can measure up 24 inches on this side, and at the very end measure 24 inches, and you can snap a chalk line, and then you just put a screw right next to, see how we have it right next to the rib on each of these? You just do that, and you can wipe all the chalk line off. We did that on one side, but since I've been working by myself lately, I've just been using that template. It's a little slower, but it works really nice. And like I said, it's about 3 inches from the bottom. I just kind of made up that measurement because I thought it looked nice. And up top, I went about 3.5 because I actually tuck it up under the J-channel a little bit. And then we also measure 24 inches from the very bottom up 24 inches, then from that line up 24, 24, 24, and that's where you get these nice straight lines of screws just like that. I don't want to show you my messed up side because it's really embarrassing, and the problem with the metal is that you cannot fix that at all. It's going to be like that forever. So I learned the hard way to not just guesstimate. So this is definitely a better way to do it. Either chalk line it or make a template, and then we're just going to keep on going. I don't know if you'll have anything like this, but what we're going to do is install one more piece, and it's going to overlap the where the top meets. So then what we're going to do is move up to the top. We're going to have to rent some scaffolding again, get all that done, and then we can move back down to the bottom, use the ladder, and get all that finished. But anyway, that's pretty much how we're doing it. I know it's not super in-depth, but I thought I'd give you a better idea how we're doing it, because when I did research, there was really not much out there. You've seen some videos and some websites about roofing, but not really for siding. So hopefully this will help someone out or give you at least a few ideas if you're thinking of trying this yourself. All right, so I thought I'd go ahead and show you how we're doing the next piece. As you can see, it slants up, and then it's going to slightly level off for a few inches. So we made the drawing here. As you can see, we got everything written down. And if you remember earlier, the side over here will have the clean cut edge. This side over here will have the flap. That'd be important for when we're drawing it later on the ground. So let me show you that now. Here's the piece. We brought out one of the big ones. We flipped it upside down. We're basically going to draw this upside down. We do that for 2 reasons. First of all, you can see the drawing on the white, and the ribs face down, so it's a lot easier to run saws across it, and it actually produces a little bit cleaner cut up front too. So what we did, as you can see, this is the clean cut side, which I mentioned earlier was the short side. So you can just see the line there, it slants up, and it levels off over here. So I'm going to cut it with the power saw, and I'll show you how well it cuts. And it's loud, a little bit dangerous, but it cuts really nice. And I'll also show you a sample with the power shears as well. Alright, so I made that straight cut with the power saw, and then I cut that little flap off with the shears so that I could get the saw in to cut the angle. So now as we're doing is sweeping off with that little brush right there, just all the shavings so that they don't stick on there and start to rust later. Once it's all clean, we're going to put it up front and start to install that. I'll show that to you next. Alright, now I don't think I showed it earlier, but these are just 1.5-inch screws that are painted to match, and they have little rubber washers. Now I'm just putting them in with a little 1/4-inch drive right in the line I just drew. And you just want to snug it up till the rubber is compressed, but it's not totally squeezed out from underneath the washer. And that's it. Those 2 screws will hold it. I'll probably put one on the end over there on the end of it just for tonight so that it doesn't flap in the wind, and then we'll just continue doing all the other pieces just like that. And then to wrap it up, we just got to cover these corners here. You can see we have them exposed. So what we're using is this corner trim. Pretty simple, and it comes in a 10-foot length. We've already cut it, and I'll show you something real quick. Up here at the top, you notice that basically it's going to come flat here, and then it has to angle up. So we measured all that and cut it. So now we're adding tape, and I'll show you how we put it up. Alright, now before we put it up there and screw it on, we're going to add some butyl tape as well with this, but it comes in a big roll like this. It's basically like flattened out caulk, or kind of like that gummy stuff that you put posters in the dorm room wall. Anyway, we're putting it right on the edge, did on this side, and finish up this side here too. Just stick it on. Before you put it up, you got to remember to peel off the backing paper. And then once we stick it up, we'll put screws in, and that'll make a real nice watertight seal. Alright, and then finally, now that the tape's up, we got the piece up there. Fits really nice up top, so all we're doing is driving screws in that match the screws in all the panels. So the last one here, pretty simple, just driving it in with this little impact driver so that it doesn't go in too tight. Basically the screw has a little washer behind it, the rubber washer, and it just squeezes to about the same width as the metal, but you don't want it sticking out too much or they'll end up getting ruined over time. But that's it, now they're up and it's all sealed up, and this thing is looking really awesome.